All right. Yes, thanks for the introduction. This case I want to present to you is a case that is maybe, well, depending on which side you stand, but as it is about the Temple Mount, it's very contested. It's probably either a best case scenario or a worst case scenario. You can decide for yourself what you do with it, but the Temple Mount Sifting Project and the problem of participatory archaeology is the title of this project. And I was especially interested in the mediation of archaeology, not only on that location where they do the sifting, and you will hear more about it in a second, but also how they mediate it online and using all kinds of social media to get in touch with people. And I want to jump in by showing you a little video clip. Hopefully that works well. They filmed themselves. It's kind of an image video they produced, so you can see for yourself what they are about. All right. I hope you also enjoyed the fantastic music with it. Steven Spielberg would probably be envious about this video clip. It's very pompous. The imagery, the language, the storytelling give you an idea what the Temple Mount Sifting Project is. But I want to start to give you a short introduction into the history of it, and then talk about the practice of the sifting, what is in the center of their project, and then also, of course, discuss the ethics that come with a project like that. The history of the Temple Mount Sifting Project doesn't start in 2004 when they opened their first sifting location, but it starts in this grand struggle in the late 90s, early 2000s around the Second Intifada that was caused by several political failings, also the failed Oslo Accords. And in 96, the El-Mawani Mosque was opened on the Temple Mount, and according to, that is right down there, and according to get it safe, the police ordered to open an emergency exit down there. But as you can see on the pictures, the emergency exit was slightly larger than everyone expected. So there was a huge outcry that there was no excavation done before. So they just transported hundreds of truckloads of debris out of the Temple Mount. And you have to know that the Temple Mount has never been properly excavated because of its high sanctimonious status. So this would have been a chance. And it was a huge outcry. We already heard about the case of the Buddhas of Bamiyan today. So that was compared to that. This destruction is so immense to what we could have known about the history of the Temple Mount. This is the political climate in which this project starts. And it gets started in 2004 by Zachi Dvira, a student of renowned archaeologist Gabriel Barkay, who then joins him. So it's these two people mainly who run the whole project, and they, in a way, are successful with it, because for until now, basically, and they will continue after COVID. They had about 200,000 volunteers coming there to help them sift through the debris. And as they state themselves, they have participants in the sifting projects from all facets of society, including children, elderly people, and people with disabilities, even blindness. So of course, this is also part of a PR campaign, but it's a very diverse group that comes there. It's often school children. It's people who come on these Holy Land tours, Americans, also both with a Christian and a Jewish background. Yeah, a diverse crowd. You also have to know that they're supported by the right-wing fraction of archaeology in Jerusalem. Elad is a name that is mentioned often. They are more and more the hegemonial force on archaeology in Jerusalem. So they joined them in 2005, then supported them with everything they needed to run their sifting location, and somehow they split up. But the Temple Mount Sifting Project found also a new place to locate, this time on the Mount of Olives. And again, with a organization that is considered a settler organization, or an organization that supports settlements in East Jerusalem. The same does Elad, by the way, which is also an interesting group to look at. So that's kind of the history. You also have to know that they have a laboratory. They have up to 12 people working there who go through all these approximately 500,000 finds and try to catalog them. But so far, they have not published anything. There's a few preliminary reports they published, but nothing else available yet. So how do they do the sifting? You could see it in the video, but there's this huge tent. There's what they call wet sifting stations, 30 of it. So you push a bucket of debris on this wet sifting station, and then take a hose, one of these green hoses, and you hose it down. Before you do it as a group, this could be, again, school children or just tourists visiting, you get a 30-minute introduction into the sifting process. You learn about the different types of artifacts, and then you do 90-minute sifting and sort these pieces into small cups. And then after that sifting process, according to themselves, they say that the volunteers, or that everything is put in larger context so that the volunteers can understand exactly what we're doing and the purpose of our project. So it's a project with a purpose. If you haven't caught that by now, you know it. And then at the end of the day, they transport it to their lab and look for indicative and special finds that are then classified further. What do they find? So as I've said, there is not much to find about it. There's these preliminary reports, mainly reports that were published at conferences, either of the Bar Ilan University that supports them, or of Elad. They have their own conference. But more interesting than these reports that is the way they present the findings. So, and here we do not talk just about the archaeological community, but also or the scholarly community, but also about the public. And they have a very, very impressive PR department. Everything they find something interesting, this is immediately published basically around the world. So you have, of course, all the Israeli newspapers that publish it, but also places like the Biblical Archaeology Review in the US. Is happy to receive any news from the Temple Mount Sifting Project. And there's recurring themes when they talk about what they find. There's these themes of that these finds are all connected, of course, to biblical context. So they found, for example, this 3,000-year-old seal, or a 10-year-old young Russian boy found it. And so they put it into the context of the Temple of David or the Temple of Solomon. They are especially interested if these artifacts produce administrative activity on the Temple Mount during those times. They have a primary interest in the temple periods, as I said, and you can often kind of get from their publications that theories over the over the course of time suddenly become facts. So things where you have a theory, this could be the tiles of Herod's temple floor. suddenly become the very tiles that were on these temple floors. So, also, I have said before, they're rarely discussed in academia. So there's a few people mentioning them. There's a few blogs following what they do, but it's rarely discussed because it's dismissed as something too odd or not scientific enough or too ideological. But still, they have huge influence on the media and on even the politicians. So going further, come to the ethics and ideology. I said already they're media savvy people. They're professional fundraisers because they need money to run this big operation. They get, of course, a small entrance fee from the people who come and sift, but then, for example, you see in this little picture down there, they have this sponsor a chapter crowdfunding page where you can sponsor pages of these coming reports or publications. Also, they're tax deductible both in Israel and in the United States, so they get a lot of external money that comes in, and you get also little gifts. So if you donate, for example, you get sifted Temple Mount Earth, or what they call Temple Mount Earth, but yeah, depending what you like, you can get gifts, and depending on your donation. Then, of course, the big problem is, and that's the whole discussion about being in situ or not in situ. And they have very grand theories about the locations of these of the debris. So when the trucks came and transported the debris from the Temple Mount, they dumped it on a dumping location in the Kidron Valley, public dump. And then the Temple Mount Sifting Project, they got access to this debris, and so they transported it to their sifting site. And then when this sifting site closed, they transported it to a different sifting site. So this debris has been transported. It was on a public dump. No one can really say if there's not modern refuse mixed in, and also the Temple Mount itself, from historical records, most likely, especially that area in the southeastern corner, is a dumping context itself that filled up over the centuries. So nothing is stratigraphic significant. And that's also was the official report of the IAA, the Israel Antiques Authority, says that in none of the dumping locations was it possible to isolate the modern refuse from the soil fill and the ancient stones. As the finds were removed from the archaeological context, they have been stripped of their stratigraphic significance. Coming to the narratives they employ, they are especially interested in countering what they say the temple denial movement. So the people who say there was never a temple on the Temple Mount. But they also employ another narrative that makes this whole sifting a process where it's a sifting through sacred earth. They say themselves that this project, quote, is not a task for a small clique of archaeologists, but rather a responsibility, duty, and privilege of the entire Jewish people and those who support them. So that's a big statement. And of course, they always, one of the main narratives is they're simply in the business of education, and they're impartial in the way they do it. So they have no agenda, is what they personally state themselves. Coming to the conclusion, Katharina Gahler basically says the same as the Israel Antiques Authority, that right now chronological and typological observations do not contribute to our current knowledge of the city's material culture, and most importantly, no stratigraphic or contextual conclusions can be drawn. This is her general idea about what the Temple Mount Sifting Project stands for. Also, we have to question the entanglement of money, politics, and ideology. If it comes to the dissemination and disclosure of archaeology, of heritage, there's always these things involved. And especially if survival is depending on the narratives you tell and on the donations that come in that are based on these narratives, and that countered with the scientific integrity, that's problematic. And of course, I'm not an expert in archaeology, so I can't say too much about public sifting. What I learned from archaeologists about it, it's a method you use, but it's controversial, at least how they do it in this context. And that so many volunteers are involved. And last one, of course, Ruben Grieber in presenting archaeological sites to the public as a key concept of public archaeology. He says that a careful approach to public archaeology is particularly relevant in situations characterized by long-standing contestation over territory. Yes. All right. That's what I have to present to you at this time. Thanks a lot for listening.